Well, it's an interesting time because it's obviously a time of reevaluating what we produce, how we produce it, how we get it out there, and how we divide it up, which is really your question. What gets produced for television versus what gets produced for digital, what we acquire. All of these are questions which not only we, but all other television networks are really discussing. And what's really interesting is to look across the entire landscape, and you can see very different strategies in terms of content and marketing and distribution. For us, for example, on the distribution side, we're looking to drive subscriptions. So wherever we get them, doesn't matter where, we'll take it. So that means we go out as broadly as possible with as many content partners as possible. Obviously, we need to do financially reasonable deals, but assuming that gets done, we want to be on all the platforms, and that's why we've done, the Roku and Amazon and gone, more broadly than some of our similar networks. In terms of the content itself, there's been a tendency on digital to say, look, it's for the web, which is sort of slang for, production value is relaxed and it's a little rough and dirty. I don't think that works anymore. The production technology is such that you can do things affordably for the web. I think the expectation of the viewer is it really doesn't matter what platform they're looking for quality entertainment. And particularly for a network like ours, which the entire brand is about premium and different than non-pay television, we need to be very careful about the standards of quality for our programming, whether it's attached to our brand on television or digitally. And I think fairly soon, if we haven't reached the point already, the whole distinction won't make any sense. Because when you say produced for digital or for streaming, a lot of our subscribers are getting our normal linear service via streaming or some form of OTT. So really, it's almost like you really can't even have that conversation anymore because it's become one product. Well, I think from the content provider perspective, from the producer perspective, you have to realize that there's a ton of content available. There's more choices now than at any point in the history of content, so to speak. So we really don't have the luxury of not doing compelling, interesting, less than premium content. Because if you're not serving the consumer's need, if you're not doing stuff that's in demand, there are 1,000 other places they can get it, whether it's traditional networks or YouTube channels or eventually Facebook Live as a programming outlet. So the first thing is it starts still with the good content, and that even though content is ubiquitous, the fact that it is ubiquitous and there are so many choices makes it the premium when you have a show like Homeland or Billions or Ray Donovan that has made some noise. So I think marketing actually comes from two different sources. One is the quality of your content. And quality content speaks for itself. There are 100 different ways in which it markets itself, whether it's through editorial or word of mouth or social media, all of those things. And then you obviously have to have a very aggressive campaign everywhere else, because the incidental result of having so many content choices is it's tougher to break through with any particular one. It's no longer 3 networks and they launch all their shows in the fall. So, quality content, is a great start, but then there has to be, a unique way of cutting through the noise, which is really, I think, the biggest challenge in today's market. Is not the content production, it's the marketing and what it takes to make an impact, make an impression, so to speak, on any particular consumer. I don't think that we'll be able to put the cat back in the bag, so to speak. In today's media landscape, the network brands have been increasingly disaggregated from their content. And that's for a variety of reasons. It's for DVR, It's for the ability to buy on demand, for subscription video on demand. So it is an increasing challenge to remind people that a show is on Showtime, that a show comes from a specific network, because for a good chunk of our audience, on some shows as much as 50%, this show shows up in their DVR, independent of a network. They don't tune to a network. So for that reason, you sometimes have to be mindful of reminding the consumer what is the source of this content, particularly when we're asking for a monthly fee every month. So if that consumer is not acutely aware of what they're getting for their monthly fee, then your business isn't going to go well. So once you take that as sort of an assumption, you have to come up with increasingly creative ways to brand and attach your network attribution to the content. Advances in technology have made it easier to produce, more efficient to produce, and in many cases more cost efficient to produce. But that's offset by the additional expenditure it takes to cut through the noise. So we're saving on the production side, but you're having to double your spending on the marketing, because where you might have been competing with a dozen, 24 new shows in the past, now there's literally 100, 150, 200 new series over the course of a year, and with that much choice, finding your audience is a tough challenge. Well, I think strategically, our network, Showtime, realized, about a decade ago, that feature films were largely fungible. There are 100 different ways to get feature films, whether on demand or subscription services or through your traditional pay network. That wasn't what was distinguishing us from anyone else, because everyone has those. What distinguishes is the original series in sports. Sports plays a big role, especially boxing, because there's not a whole lot of outlets where you can get that. So if you are a boxing fan, you've got only a couple outlets to find the highest profile events. There's only one place you can get, Dexter, if you were a Dexter fan, or Homeland, or Billions. So even with the variety of shows and the wide number of shows that are being produced, there's still tremendous value to the hits. When you have a hit, it speaks so much more loudly, whether it's an Empire or Homeland, because it's amplified by social media, and it jumps out above the herd. So they're increasingly fewer and far between, but when you get one, they're way more valuable than they've been in the past. Well, there's definitely more competition for quality content of all kinds, and that has impacted the price of that content. More bidders, more money in the marketplace. It has made things much tougher in terms of getting each individual product. And again, it comes back to the brand of your network and what you are promising to deliver to the content creator, in terms of everything from the value of being on a premium network, the cachet of being on a network. It's all these kinds of intangible things, which all of a sudden are sometimes the differences between 5 different offers which are on the table. Relationships, creative control, cachet. Things come into play much more since there's plenty of money in the marketplace for content. In terms of sports itself, it is the one thing that really still to this day holds the live viewership. And it is one thing that actually has a different level of loyalty than other programming. People don't typically pass along their fondness for television shows to their kids. But it's common to hear, I'm a Yankee fan because my dad was a Yankee fan. So there's a different type of loyalty that is going on. There's a different type of relationship with the sports fans. So if you tap into that, you've got a different connection with your individual viewer than you do to most non-sports fans, who realize Dexter, for example, and someday there was always going to be an end to Dexter, and that's part of the realities of TVs. As far as I know, there's not going to be an end to the New York Yankees, and so for that reason, those are the reasons why they're passed over generations. So aside from just the live viewing, there are other benefits to the sports as well. It doesn't go away, and one of the fascinating things about sports, and it's one of the reasons why it's so tough to do a fictional sports series or even fictional sports movies, is the stories in the actual sport are better than fiction. If you created Mike Tyson as a television character, he wouldn't be believable. If you created, Floyd Mayweather as a fictional character, he wouldn't be believable. But yet you've got these real life characters, which again provide more drama in real life than you could ever deliver in a fictional screenplay. People don't typically think about sort of branding in sports because, when you talk about, there are certain series which feel branded to a network. But yet, in sports, there are brand affinities. We've had great success with both entertainment series and with our documentaries, with the sort of tragically flawed protagonist. There's, Dexter on Dexter. We can go back to Weeds. We can go back to Californication, or currently with Carrie Mathison, or either of the main characters on Billions. We have gotten away from simplistic characters. Everybody is shades of gray, and everybody's 60-40, 55-45. Well, that's sort of the way the world feels about Floyd Mayweather, about Lawrence Taylor, about Allen Iverson. They are characters which, they're not true heroes. In some sense, they're anti-heroes. So, people don't typically think about programming sports in a way that is consistent with the network brand, but it happens, and it's an important part of our brand as well. And sports documentaries have been something that we've placed tremendous emphasis on the last 2 or 3 years, whether it was Kobe Bryant or Lawrence Taylor or some of the Floyd Mayweather Access series, or going behind the scenes with Notre Dame football all season. There's an insatiable appetite among sports fans for reality content. There's plenty of live coverage, but it never seems to be enough. And that's where we found a lot of success, is giving real-time access to places that you can't go. No one's been inside the Notre Dame locker room the way we have been. No one's spent time behind the scenes with Floyd Mayweather. No one will see what it's like to compete in the Stanley Cup until we broadcast our NHL series. So from that perspective, again, there's almost an endless supply of content in all these sporting events. It's interesting the way the progression of sports docuseries has gone, because one of the first ones was Hard Knocks, and that took people inside preseason and NFL football, and that was novel for a while, but then you've got to sort of increase, you can amp up the intensity. So then we went behind the scenes all season, during actual games, and then sort of came to the point we said, well, what if we could get into a major sports championship, which we thought, that's impossible. It's the only place left to go that hasn't been explored yet, but we thought it'd be virtual impossible because we all know how teams and coaches get in the most critical periods. So the fact that we were able to get into the Stanley Cup Finals in an all-access way is somewhat surprising and really exciting for us, because to us it represents the next progression of sports docuseries, to go where the stakes are highest, the most impact, the most significant time of the season. It took us a while for the genre to get here, but it's here, and I think it's going to be the most exciting development yet.